I sit in a lot of parent meetings, and there's a pattern I see where a family spends months, sometimes years, focused on essays and activities and college lists when the real problem started way earlier. Because most parents make a decision about how involved they're going to be in this process and then never revisit. They pick a lane on day one and assume that's the right move. What I want to show you in this video are the 3 conversations every parent should have before their kid writes a single essay. Then I'll show you the 2 types of parents who accidentally sabotage applications and what to do instead. This applies whether your kid is in 10th, 11th, or even 12th grade. So hit subscribe because every week I break down real strategies for parents and students. Let's start with the foundation. The first conversation, where does your kid actually stand academically? I know what you're thinking. My kid has straight A's, they're doing fine, but that doesn't answer the question. When I ask parents this in the meetings, here's what happens. Some parents overestimate. Your kid is doing well at their local high school, maybe top of the class. So they assume Harvard, Stanford, MIT are realistic targets. They don't know that at these schools, everyone was top of their class. The competition isn't local anymore. It's global. That 4.0 GPA, that's baseline. That leadership position, that's standard. And on the flip side, some parents grossly underestimate. I meet students who could genuinely compete for top programs, who have the academics, the depth, the intellectual capacity, but no one ever told them. So they aim for state schools or mid-tier privates, never realizing they could have accessed merit scholarships, honors programs, or schools that would have challenged them more. Both extremes cause problems. If you're in the first group, you're setting up for disappointment. And if you're in the second, you're leaving opportunity on the table. What you actually need is calibration. That means looking at your kids' grades and rigor in context, how their school is viewed nationally, and what the applicant pool looks like right now. This has nothing to do with limiting dreams. You can't plan a strategy if you don't know your starting point. So before you start Googling how to write a college essay, pause. Do you actually know where your kid stands? Not just at their school, in the broader pool. Second conversation. What does your kid want from college? And I don't mean what school do they want to get into. I mean, what kind of environment do they want to be in for 4 years? Because here's what most people miss. Elite colleges are elite because they're extremely intense. Pace is fast. The competition is constant. Your kid will be surrounded by people who were just as accomplished as them in high school, if not more. Some students thrive in that. They love the pressure, the intellectual challenge, being pushed, and others don't. I've seen students get into top schools and burn out by sophomore year because no one asked if they actually wanted that level of intensity. They just assumed higher rank equals better outcome. So you need to have a real conversation very early. Does your kid want a hyper-competitive academic culture or something much more collaborative? Do they want to dive deep into research, or do they need flexibility to explore? Are they motivated by prestige, by learning, or by career outcomes? There's no wrong answer. But a top college that doesn't fit your kid is worse than a mid-tier school where they'll excel. This conversation doesn't happen in senior year when you're building a college list. It happens way earlier, when there's still time to shape the strategy around what they actually want. Third conversation. What are your constraints? This is the one most families avoid. And that avoidance creates chaos later. You need to be honest about budget. Do you pay full price? Do you need merit aid, financial aid? Location. Are you comfortable with your kid being across the country? Also, risk tolerance. Are you okay applying to 10 read schools and hoping one works out? Without this conversation, college lists become wish lists. Students apply emotionally, get rejected from schools they couldn't have afforded anyway, and everyone feels worse than they needed to. Constraints don't limit options. They create better options because once you know what you're working with, you can build a strategy that actually makes sense. So before your kid falls in love with a school based on a campus tour, have the hard conversation. What can you actually do? All right, so those are the 3 foundational conversations. If you skip those, the rest doesn't matter. Now, let me show you the 2 types of parents I see and why both approaches fail. Type 1 is the hands-off parent. These are parents who assume the school will handle everything. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they don't understand the process. Maybe they just trust their kid to figure it out. And look, I get it. Not every parent can turn into a college counselor. Complete silence creates problems. Missed deadlines, poor positioning, students who don't realize they need help until it's too late. Sometimes one conversation, just one, is enough to reveal that a student is confused, directionless, or underperforming relative to their potential. That conversation doesn't have to be you micromanaging their essays, but it does need to happen. Type 2 is the helicopter parent. Less common, but way more damaging. These are parents who overmanage activities, who steer interests, who force a story onto their kid because they think that's what admissions officers want to see. I mean, they mean well. They want their kid to stand out. But here's what happens. The student loses curiosity. They stop being intellectually vital. They stop owning their work. And admissions officers can feel this in their essays. The application reads like a resume, flat and manufactured. You end up creating exactly the applicant you were trying to avoid. And look, if you're realizing right now that you might be falling into one of these categories, that's what we figure out in strategy sessions. How to be involved without being controlling. Book a call, link below. So what's the right approach? Be aware but not controlling, involved but not intrusive, and strategic but not emotional. Check in periodically, ask good questions, offer perspective when it's needed. But let your kid make their own decision. And if you realize there's misalignment, if your kid is underperforming, or you can't figure out the right strategy, or you just want clarity without overstepping, bring in a third party, someone neutral, someone who's done this before. Sometimes the best move a parent can make is recognizing when they need help. All right, so let's bring this all together. 3 conversations every parent needs to have. Number 1, where does your kid actually stand academically? Number 2, what does your kid actually want from college? And number 3, what are your constraints? If this resonated, I work with families one-on-one to build these strategies. Not to promise outcomes, but to create clarity. To figure out where your kid stands, what they want, and how to position them effectively. Book a call with the link in the description below. We'll figure out what makes sense for your situation. Make sure you hit subscribe because next week I'm breaking down the biggest mistakes parents make during the application process and how to avoid them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.